The phone buzzed on the seat beside me, again and again. 23 missed calls so far. His name flashed on the screen as another contraction tore through me, sharper than the last dot outside. Snow fell in heavy flakes, covering the hospital parking lot in silence. The dashboard clock read 11:47 p.m. You could just go alone if it happens, he had joked earlier that day, tossing his bags into his parents' car. It's not like you need me there. The phone buzzed again. This time I picked it up, watching his desperate messages appear one after another. Where are you? Please answer. The roads are closed. I'm trying to get back. Please be okay. My thumb hovered over the screen. It would be so easy to reply, to forgive, to slip back into the cycle that had shaped our 5 years together. Instead, I powered the phone off and slid it into my pocket. With one hand resting on my swollen belly, and the other gripping my overnight bag, I pushed open the car door and stepped into the Some bridges, once burned, should never be rebuilt. 3 months earlier, I had sat in Dr. Patel's office, clutching Matthew's hand as she pointed at the grainy ultrasound image. Congratulations, she said warmly. You're having a girl. Matthew's hand tightened around mine. In the dim light, I saw tears shimmer in his eyes. This was the moment we had been waiting for after nearly 3 years of disappointment, one miscarriage, and countless nights of grief. A girl, he whispered, his voice breaking. Emma, we're having a daughter. I pressed a hand to my belly, still small enough to hide under loose clothing, but undeniably real. Our miracle, our second chance. We hadn't shared the news yet, not with my best friend Liv, not with his parents, not even my sister Jenna. The pain of our earlier loss had made us cautious, but with the second trimester begun, and a steady heartbeat confirmed, we finally had something worth celebrating. I think it's time to tell people, I said as we walked to the car, the June sun warm against us. Starting with your parents, this weekend, I suggested. Matthew nodded, pulling me close. Mom's been asking for months why we haven't visited. I guess we can finally tell her why. His parents lived 3 hours north in Lakeside, the resort town where Matthew had grown up helping at their bed. Eleanor and Richard Kane were kind, though traditional. They had never understood why I kept working after marriage, or why we had waited to start a family. She'd be thrilled, I said. They both will. Matthew agreed with that crooked half-smile I had first fallen for in graduate school. They might not let us leave once they know. I laughed, not realizing how true those words would turn out to be. That weekend with Matthew's parents unfolded exactly as expected. Eleanor cried. Richard opened a bottle of expensive scotch he'd been saving. They immediately began planning a nursery in their home for when we visited, as Eleanor put it. The look in her eyes suggested she imagined much longer stays. It should have been a warning the way they spoke, as if our child partly belonged to them. But I was too caught up in the joy of sharing our news to notice how icily Matthew deferred to his mother's suggestions. How quickly he agreed when they insisted we spend Christmas with them. You shouldn't be traveling in your condition, Eleanor said firmly, patting my hand. Stay here where we can take care of you. By Sunday night, Eleanor had already ordered a crib and changing table. Richard had cleared out his office for the nursery. They're excited, Matthew told me when I voiced my unease. It's their first grandchild. Let them enjoy it. I nodded, pushing aside the discomfort. This is normal, I reminded myself. After years of hoping, wasn't it a blessing to have family so eager to welcome our child? What I didn't see was that this was the first subtle pull in the rope that would eventually draw Matthew away from me. As summer turned into fall, my body changed quickly. The small bump grew into a full belly, and with it came a vulnerability I hadn't expected. Matthew noticed too, his protective side kicking in. Maybe you should cut back your hours, he suggested one evening as I massaged my swollen feet after a long day at the architecture firm. Johnson would understand. I shook my head. I need to finish the Riverside project. After that, in November, I'll take leave. Mom thinks you're pushing too hard, he said quietly, avoiding my eyes. Something cold settled in me. You've been talking to your mother about my work schedule. She asks how you're doing. What am I supposed to say? Nothing, he replied defensively. You could tell her I'm managing my pregnancy just fine, I answered, trying to keep calm. Because I am. That argument wasn't the first about his parents' involvement, but it was the first time I recognized the patterns. More and more, Matthew leaned on his mother's opinions about vitamins, sleep, everything. Eleanor called daily, and Matthew always answered, often stepping away to speak in hushed tones. When I confronted him, He dismissed my concerns, saying I was hormonal and jealous of his closeness with his parents. They're only trying to help, he argued. Help or control, I asked. His expression hardened. You know what your problem is, Emma? You've never understood what a real family is. Not everyone grew up with divorced parents. His words struck deep. My parents' bitter separation when I was 12 had left lasting scars, something I thought Matthew understood. Using it against me revealed a side of him I hadn't seen before. I didn't speak to him for 2 days. When we finally reconciled, it felt fragile, based more on silence than resolution. Live noticed the change during our weekly coffee. You seem off, she said, studying me over her cup. Is this just pregnancy, or something else? I considered brushing it aside, but Live had been my closest friend since college. She saw through me too easily. It's Matthew, I admitted. Ever since we told his parents about the baby, he's changed. It's like they control him. Different how? She asked. He calls them every day. His mom constantly sends baby items and parenting books, and he just accepts it. Last week they showed up with nursery furniture because Eleanor didn't like what we chose and Matthew helped them carry it in. When I protested, he said I should be grateful they care. Liv reached across the table, squeezing my hand. That's not normal, Emma. Not even for grandparents to be. I know, I whispered. And when I bring it up, he gets defensive, says I don't understand because of my broken family background. Liv's eyes widened. He actually said that. I nodded, holding back tears. Sometimes I don't recognize him. Around them, it's like he's a teenager again, not a 34-year-old man. That's not fair to you, Liv said firmly. And it's not healthy for your baby either. You two need to stand together. I know, I replied quietly. I just don't know how to reach him. Neither of us realized then how wide the distance between Matthew and me had already grown. A breaking point was coming, sooner than I could imagine. November brought an early cold snap and the completion of the Riverside project. As planned, I began maternity leave, hoping to use the time to prepare for our daughter's January arrival. Eleanor and Richard started visiting every other weekend, each stay stretching longer. During one visit, just after Thanksgiving, Eleanor raised the topic of Christmas, with Emma so close to her due date. She said over dinner, maybe you both should come to Lakeside earlier than planned. Mid-December would be safer. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. Mid-December, that's nearly 3 weeks before my due date. Better safe than sorry, Richard added. The weather could get bad, and you don't want to be stuck here. If labor starts early, I have regular appointments with Dr. Patel, I reminded them, and delivery already arranged at St. Mary's. Eleanor waved it off. Dr. Wan in Lakeside is excellent. I spoke to him. He's happy to take you on as a patient. The room tilted. You contacted a doctor about me. Without asking, I looked at Matthew, expecting him to step in. Instead, he nodded. It's not a bad idea, he said. The weather has been unpredictable. Matthew, I said quietly, can we talk privately? In the kitchen, I tried to keep my voice low. Don't you see, they're trying to take over the birth now. They're trying to help, Matthew insisted. Mom's right. What if there's a snowstorm? What if we can't get to the hospital? That's why we chose one 10 minutes away. Dr. Patel knows my history. I'm not switching doctors at 8 months pregnant because your mother decided to coordinate it. Matthew ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. You're being stubborn. This isn't control, it's about safety. Our baby, I emphasized. Our decision, not your parents. The conversation ended in stalemate, but his expression told me it wasn't over. Over the next 2 weeks, he raised the topic again and again. Each time with a new reason. Lakeside made more sense. The hospital there has a better NICU, he argued one evening. St. Mary's is top-rated, I countered. I researched it thoroughly. Mom says Dr. Wan has delivered over 1,000 babies without complications. That's statistically impossible, I replied. But the pressure didn't stop. By mid-December, nothing was resolved. Matthew grew more distant, spending hours on the phone with his parents and less time with me. The nursery was ready, but instead of excitement, I felt only dread. Something between us was breaking. On December 20th, 5 days before Christmas, snow began falling. By evening, 4 inches covered the ground. With more predicted overnight. Matthew watched the weather report. Concern etched on his face. Mom called, he said after hanging up. The roads to Lakeside are still clear, but they might not be tomorrow. I kept folding baby clothes, silent. Emma, he said, his voice carrying that patient tone I'd grown to resent. Be practical. If we leave tonight, we'll reach my parents' place before the storm worsens. I placed a tiny onesie on the stack of baby clothes. I'm not going, Matthew. Don't be unreasonable. You're due in 3 weeks, he snapped. What if you go into labor during the storm? Then we'll drive to St. Mary's, just like we planned. Matthew paced the living room. I don't understand why you're being so stubborn. My parents have gone out of their way to prepare for us. Mom's been cooking all week. I finally looked up. I'm not going to Lakeside to have this baby. I'm staying here with my doctor and my hospital. If you want to see your parents, for Christmas, then go. I didn't actually believe he'd live not with my due dates so close, but Matthew had changed in recent months, in ways I was only beginning to recognize. Fine, he said coldly. He stormed out, speaking urgently into his phone. 20 minutes later, he returned with a set expression. My parents are coming tomorrow to get me. I'll spend Christmas with them and be back before New Year's. Maybe by then you'll have moved past whatever this is. I stared at him, disbelief and hurt rising. You're really going to leave me here alone when I could go into labor at any time? You're the one choosing to stay, he shot back. Besides, you said yourself you're not due for 3 weeks. First babies usually arrive late. Matthew, I pleaded, my voice breaking. Please don't. For a moment, something uncertain flickered in his eyes. Regret, perhaps, but then his phone buzzed, and the moment was gone. I'll be back before anything happens, he said firmly. And Liv is nearby if you need anything. That night, silence built a wall between us. In the morning, I watched from the window as he loaded bags into his parents' car. Before getting in, he came back inside, his voice softer. It's not too late. Come with us. I shook my head, tears brimming. I can't believe you're doing this. His face hardened. You're the one being difficult, Emma, not me. At the door, he paused. Call me if anything happens. You could even go alone. It's not like you need me there. The door shut behind him, and through blurred tears I watched the car pull away, carrying him toward his parents and away from me at the very moment I needed him most. I didn't know then that his callous words would be the last I'd hear from him in person for a long time. The first day alone almost felt like freedom. I moved through the house without Matthew hovering or his parents' constant opinions. I played music Eleanor had once deemed too stimulating for the baby. I ordered spicy Thai food Matthew had forbidden. But by evening, the sense of freedom had faded, replaced by a hollow ache I didn't want to acknowledge. I called Liv, who immediately offered to come over. Absolutely not, I said when she suggested driving in the worsening snow. I'm fine, just bored. He's an idiot, Liv declared. Leaving you alone now, of all times. He says he'll be back by New Year's, I replied, though doubt was already creeping in. Eleanor would find excuses to keep him there, she always did. Well, I'm checking in every day until he gets back, Liv insisted. And I'm coming over for Christmas. No arguments. After we hung up, I wandered into the nursery. The crib was ready, surrounded by shelves of baby books and stuffed animals. On the changing table, tiny clothes were neatly stacked. I touched the soft yellow blanket my sister had sent from Seattle. It's just you and me, for now, little one, I whispered, resting my hands on my belly. In response, I felt a strong kick. That night, I dreamed of hospital corridors and locked doors, calling out for Matthew but only hearing Eleanor's voice. I woke at 3 a.m., my nightgown damp, with sweat despite the cold. Something felt different. Not painful exactly, but a tightening that came and went. I timed them. 15 minutes apart. Too irregular for labor, I told myself. Probably just Braxton Hicks. Still, I stayed awake until dawn. By morning, the contractions hadn't stopped. I called Dr. Patel's office. It's probably nothing serious, the nurse reassured me. But since you're home alone, come in for a quick check. The roads were slick but manageable as I drove myself to the clinic. Dr. Patel examined me carefully, her expression calm. Your cervix is still closed, she said. No signs of active labor. But the contractions are worth monitoring. They could be early labor or just your body practicing. So I shouldn't worry, I asked. I'd prefer you not be alone right now, she admitted. Is there someone who can stay with you? I thought of Liv, who would come instantly, but she was leaving tomorrow for Chicago. My sister Jenna was across the country. The Few friends I might have called were all away for the holidays. My husband will be back soon. I lied. Dr. Patel gave me a skeptical look, but nodded. The doctor reminded me to keep timing the contractions. If they grew stronger, closer together, or if I noticed any fluid, I needed to head straight to the hospital. On the way home, snow began to fall again, heavy flakes cutting visibility to just a few yards. My phone rang through the car speakers. Matthew, calling for his usual check-in. "How are you feeling?" he asked. Christmas music and laughter in the background. "Fine," I answered, choosing not to mention the contractions or my appointment. "Sounds like you're having fun," I added, forcing a smile at his words. "Mom made her gingerbread. Dad's got the fire going. The Thompsons came over, you remember, Mike from high school. He's here with his wife and kids," he said, his tone bright. "That's nice," I replied flatly. A pause. "You sure you're okay? You sound tired." For a moment, I thought of telling him everything, how scared I was, how the contractions had kept me awake, how the doctor said I shouldn't be alone, but pride held me back. He had made his decision. "Just didn't sleep well," I said. "Instead, the baby's active," I added. "Mom thinks that means she'll be athletic," he said cheerfully. "Oh, before I forget, we're going to the lake house tomorrow. Reception isn't great there, so don't worry if you can't reach me." The lake house. 3 more hours away from home, beyond his parents' place. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Is that really wise? What if I need you?" I asked, struggling to steady my voice. "You'll be fine," he answered, dismissive. "It's just overnight." I ended the call shortly after, cold numbness setting in. He knew I was nearly 9 months along, knew I was alone, yet he was heading further away to a place where I couldn't even reach him. By the time I pulled into the driveway, snow was so heavy I could barely see the front door. Inside, I changed clothes and curled up on the couch, trying to ignore the contractions that now came every 12 minutes. Just Braxton Hicks, I told myself. Not real labor, not yet. But as the storm worsened, another thought began forming, one born of anger and hurt. If these contractions turned into labor, would I even tell him? Christmas brought no break from the snow or the tightening pains. They remained unpredictable, sometimes an hour apart, sometimes 10 minutes, but never falling into a clear rhythm. I distracted myself with holiday movies and finishing the nursery. Matthew called later, his voice distorted. "We're at the lake house, reception's bad, but I wanted to check in before it gets worse." "How long are you staying?" I asked, ignoring the contraction building across my stomach. "Back tomorrow afternoon. The Hendersons are coming for Christmas dinner. Dad's old business partner. His granddaughter just got engaged, so Mom's planning a celebration." Each mention of their plans felt like a reminder of what I was missing, and what he had chosen instead of me. "Sounds fun," I said quietly. "Emma," his voice turned serious, "you'd tell me if something was wrong, wouldn't you? If you needed me to come home." For a moment, I almost admitted the contractions, the doctor's warning, the fear that our daughter might arrive early. But I remembered his parting words, "You could just go by yourself if it happens." "Everything's fine," I said instead. "Enjoy the lake house." After hanging up, I went to the bathroom and froze at the sight of a faint pink tinge in the toilet. A bloody show. Dr. Patel had told me it was one of the first signs. Early labor could last for days, I reminded myself. There was still time. I called Liv. She picked up on the first ring. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. "Nothing." "Well, maybe something. I think it might be early labor." Her sharp breath came through. "I'm coming over." "You're supposed to leave for Chicago tomorrow," I protested. "Screw Chicago. My best friend needs me." "No," I said firmly. "Your parents are expecting you." "I'm fine. The contractions aren't close together yet. It could be days." After a long debate, we agreed she'd check on me in the morning before her flight. If things had progressed, she'd stay. If not, she'd go as planned. "And you'll call, Matthew?" she pressed. "If it turns into real labor, yes," I promised, the lie slipping out easily. That night, as snow piled higher and contractions grew stronger, I found myself repeatedly picking up the phone, then setting it back down. Part of me knew I should call him, that no matter what, he deserved to know his child might be coming. But another part, the one wounded by his absence, couldn't bring myself to hand him that chance, the chance to show up at the last minute, and pretend he hadn't left me alone when I needed him most. By midnight, the contractions were 8 minutes apart and strong enough that I could no longer talk through them. Still, I hesitated. Not yet, I told myself. Not until I'm certain. I drifted in and out of restless sleep, waking with each wave to grip the edge of the couch and breathe through the pain. At 3:17 a.m. on Christmas morning, a particularly sharp contraction forced a gasp from my lips. As it faded, a sudden warm rush told me my water had broken. This was real labor, and there was no denying it anymore. Outside, nearly a foot of snow had already fallen, with more coming down steadily. My contractions were now every 6 minutes. It was time to go to the hospital. With trembling hands, I picked up my phone. The first call was to Live. She was closer. After I explained, she responded immediately. I'm on my way. Don't move. Don't drive yourself. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Next, my finger hovered over Matthew's name. One tap, and he'd know. One tap, and he could begin the long drive back, maybe even make it in time for his daughter's birth. But instead, I set the phone aside and went to get my hospital bag. Choices shape the paths we take, and Matthew had already made his by choosing his parents over his wife and unborn child. Now, I was making mine. Liv arrived faster than I expected, her car skidding slightly as she pulled into the driveway. One look at my face told her everything. Hospital now, she said, grabbing my bag with one hand and steadying me with the other. By the time we reached her car, my contractions were 5 minutes apart, each one clamping down like a vice, stealing my breath. Between them, doubts crept in. I should call Matthew, I murmured as Liv carefully navigated the snowy streets. Yes, you should, she agreed, eyes locked on the road. But first, let's get you to the hospital. The emergency entrance at St. Mary's was a welcome contrast to the freezing air outside. A nurse saw me doubled over and quickly called for a wheelchair. How far apart? She asked briskly as she pushed me toward labor and delivery. 4 minutes, Liv answered for me. Her water broke about 40 minutes ago. Everything moved quickly. Dr. Patel was paged. An IV started. Monitors attached to track the baby's heartbeat and my contractions. My phone stayed untouched in my purse. 4 centimeters dilated, the nurse announced after checking. You're doing great. First baby? Another asked, adjusting the monitor. I nodded, gritting my teeth as another contraction hit. Where's Dad? Getting coffee, she asked lightly. The question stung. Before I could respond, Liv spoke firmly. He's not in the picture right now. I'm her person. The nurse's smile faltered, but she quickly recovered. Well, you're in good hands here. As the hours passed and labor grew stronger, I lost all sense of time. The contractions blurred together, relentless waves with no beginning or end. Dr. Patel arrived around dawn, her calm presence grounding me. You're progressing beautifully, she said after checking. 6 centimeters between contractions. I glanced at the clock. 9:17 a.m. Christmas morning. Matthew was likely waking up at the lake house, opening presents with his parents, unaware his daughter was about to be born. The thought sparked anger sharper than any contraction. How could he have left us? How could he choose them over us? Do you want me to call him? Liv asked quietly, noticing my gaze. I shook my head with sudden certainty. No, I don't. Labor dragged on through the late morning. At some point, I heard my phone buzzing inside my purse once, twice, 3 times. Matthew's daily check-ins. Let him wonder, I thought. A small, bitter part of me almost welcomed the silence. 8 centimeters, Dr. Patel announced around noon. You're in transition now, the hardest part, but also the shortest. She was right. The contractions came fast and crushing, leaving no room to recover. Words slipped away. All I could do was endure. Liv never left my side, offering ice chips, wiping my forehead, encouraging me through every wave. In rare, lucid moments, I realized this was what real family meant. Not blood, not obligation, but choosing to show up when it truly mattered. At 2:41 p.m. on Christmas Day, with one final push, my daughter entered the world. Her first cry filled the room. She's perfect, Dr. Patel said, placing the small, wriggling infant on my chest. Congratulations, Emma. Through tears, I looked down at her tiny face, eyes squeezed shut, fists clenched tight as if ready for the world. All the pain, physical and emotional, melted away, replaced by a love so fierce it stole my breath. Hello, Lily, I whispered, the name we had chosen months earlier now feeling exactly right. I'm your mom. Her dark blue eyes blinked open, unfocused but somehow meeting mine. In that instant, A bond formed immediate and unbreakable. In that moment, I knew I would do whatever it took to protect this small life, especially from those who had already shown they couldn't be trusted. An hour later, after being cleaned up and settled in a recovery room, Lily slept peacefully in a bassinet beside me. That's when I asked Liv for my phone. 20-7 missed calls from Matthew. 53 messages, each one more urgent than the last. The most recent had arrived just minutes earlier. Emma, please answer me. I'm worried sick. The roads are awful, but we're trying to get home. Please, just let me know you're okay. Stared at his words, heavy with desperation, but felt only a steady calm. His choice had been made 5 days ago. Now it was mine to make. With careful fingers, I typed my reply. Lily Catherine Wright was born at 2:41 p.m. We're both fine. I pressed send, then switched off the phone and placed it on the bedside table. Some bridges, once burned, should remain that way. The hospital kept us for 2 days. Routine for a first-time mother with an uncomplicated birth. My phone stayed off the entire time, tucked away in a drawer like something toxic I couldn't bring myself to touch. Live stayed with me whenever visiting rules allowed, bringing clothes and passing updates to my sister Jenna, who booked a flight from Seattle as soon as she heard. When Live wasn't there, my focus stayed on Lily, learning how to nurse, change her, and recognize her cries. The nurses guided me through swaddling, bathing, and caring for my recovering body. After the first day, no one mentioned Lily's father. Again, a well-meaning nurse had asked if he would be visiting, but Liv quietly handled that conversation. Afterward, the staff showed me a kind sympathy I was too exhausted to resist. On December 27th, Dr. Patel signed our discharge papers. You're both doing wonderfully, she said, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. But no driving for at least a week, preferably 2. Do you have someone to take you home? I do, I replied. Liv was waiting outside, her car warmed and ready. The infant seat we had installed months ago now awaited its first passenger. Just as we prepared to leave, a nurse I hadn't seen before stepped into the doorway. Her expression was hesitant. Mrs. Wright, there's a situation at the front desk. Your husband is here. He insists on seeing you and the baby. My chest tightened. I had known this moment would come, but I had hoped for more time to recover, to think, to decide what I would say when we finally faced each other. Tell him we've already been discharged, I said quietly. Tell him we're gone. The nurse hesitated. He seems very upset. He says he's been trying to reach you for days. Please, I whispered, my voice breaking slightly. I can't see him right now. She nodded with understanding. I'll take care of it. There's a service elevator we can use to avoid the lobby. 20 minutes later, Liv drove us carefully through the snow-covered streets, Lily asleep in her car seat. In the side mirror, I caught a glimpse of Matthew outside the hospital entrance, speaking urgently with the security guard. He'll come to the house, I murmured. Do you want to go somewhere else? Liv asked gently. You could stay with me for a few days. I considered it, then shook my head. No, I need to face this eventually. It might as well be now. But when we reached home, his car wasn't there. Inside, the house was just as I'd left it 3 days earlier, colder, the thermostat turned down to save energy. Let me warm the place up before you take your coat off, Liv said, moving quickly to adjust the heat. I'll bring your bags in. Carrying Lily, still wrapped in her hospital blanket, I stepped into the nursery. The room felt different, familiar, yet distant, like looking at a photograph of a life that no longer existed. I had decorated it with hope and plans for the future, plans that had already shifted. Welcome home, I whispered to Lily as I laid her gently in the crib for the first time. She squirmed briefly, then drifted back into sleep. The doorbell rang, startling me. Liv appeared in the doorway, her face concerned. It's not him, she said quickly. It's Mrs. Peterson. She's holding a casserole dish. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by exhaustion so heavy my knees nearly buckled. Could you thank her for me? I need to lie down. I made it to my bedroom just as the tears I'd been holding back for days finally came. Alone in the too large bed, I let them fall for the birth he had missed, for the marriage that was unraveling, for the future I once believed was certain. At some point, I must have slept. I woke to Lily's hungry cries, pulling me back into the darkened room, lit only by the soft glow of the baby monitor. On the nightstand sat my phone, still powered off. With a sigh, I turned it on. It was time to face reality, no matter how much it hurt. The notifications poured in, immediately missed calls, voicemails, endless text messages from Matthew. I scrolled through them, watching his words shift from worry, to panic, to anger, to raw desperation. Where are you? Christmas morning, 9:32 a.m. Why aren't you answering? 10:17 a.m. I'm trying to reach you. The roads are getting worse. 11:45 a.m. Emma, please. I was worried something had happened to you. 10:03 p.m. We're on our way back. Please, be okay. 2:17 p.m. My short message about Lily's birth was followed by his confused reply. What do you mean? Are you in labor? At the hospital. 3:42 p.m. Emma, please answer me. 3:43 p.m. I'm coming. Tell me which hospital. 3:44 p.m. Dozens more messages followed, each more desperate than the last. The final one had arrived just 20 minutes earlier. I'm at the house. Where are you? Almost at the same moment, headlights crossed the bedroom wall as a car turned into the driveway. Lily's cries grew louder from the nursery. From the hallway, I heard Liv's steps moving toward the door, that it was time to face the outcome of the choice I'd made. I reached Lily first, lifting her gently from the crib as Liv opened the front door. From the entryway came Matthew's voice, almost broken. Where is she? Where's Emma? Keep your voice down, Liv said coldly. The baby's sleeping. Baby, his voice cracked. So it's true. She was born 2 days ago, Liv confirmed, while you were celebrating Christmas with your parents. I stepped into the hall with Lily against my shoulder. Her cries softened as I patted her back. The light showed Matthew's face unshaven, drawn, his eyes red from tears or exhaustion, maybe both. He froze at the sight of us, staring at the tiny bundle in my arms. Emma, he whispered. Oh God. For a long moment, no one moved. Then he reached forward, hand trembling as though to touch his daughter for the first time. Instinctively, I stepped back, protective, unwilling to yield. The pain that flickered across his face showed he understood. You didn't call me, he said quietly, voice hollow. You went through labor without me. You weren't here to call, I answered, steadier than I felt. I would have been. His words burst out, loud enough to startle Lily. If I'd known, I would have come right away. Lower your voice, I said gently, rocking her. Maybe you'd have made it for the birth, but you weren't here for everything else. You chose to leave. I was coming back. I always said I was coming back. After Christmas, I reminded him. After your parents' parties. After the lake house. After everything more important than your pregnant wife alone in a snowstorm. That's not fair, he protested, running a hand through his messy hair. You told me to go. You said you'd be fine. And you believed that? I asked, shaking my head. You thought leaving your 9-month pregnant wife alone was acceptable, because she said she'd manage. A good husband wouldn't have left in the first place. Lily's cries rose again, sensing the tension. I turned toward the nursery. I need to feed her. Emma, please. His voice broke. She's my daughter too. I have a right to see her, to hold her. I paused at the door but didn't turn around. Rights have to be earned, Matthew. And you haven't earned them these past few days. I closed the door, shutting out his reply, settling into the rocking chair. I nursed Lily while faint voices carried from the living room Matthew and Liv. Their tones sharp but words indistinct. By the time Lily had fed and fallen asleep, the house was silent again. I stepped out to find Liv in the kitchen, making tea. He's gone, she said. I told him to give you space. He's staying downtown tonight. Relief and a quiet ache mixed inside me. What did he say? Plenty of excuses, Liv replied, handing me a mug. The roads were bad. His parents convinced him not to drive in the storm. His calls didn't go through. Things he could have worked around if he'd really wanted to. That's what I thought, I said. That's what I told him, she added, sipping her tea. And I told him if he wants any chance to fix this, he has to stop justifying himself and start taking responsibility. I raised an eyebrow. You said that to him. Someone had to, she shrugged. And since I'm not the one who just gave birth, it felt like it should be me. Despite everything, I smiled. What would I do without you? Let's never find out, she replied, squeezing my hand. I stocked the fridge with bottles. Now I need to pack a bag if I'm going to be your roommate for the next few days. After she left, the house felt too quiet, too empty. I wandered into the living room where the Christmas tree stood dark, gifts unopened beneath it, mostly for the baby. On the mantel, photo frames lined up, our wedding day, Our honeymoon in Costa Rica, Matthew's law school graduation, my first big architectural project, moments from a life that suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. The last frame held an ultrasound photo Lily at 20 weeks, her tiny profile sharp and clear. Matthew had cried when we first saw it. "That's our baby," he'd whispered, full of awe and love. Where had that Matthew gone? When had his parents' approval become more important than his wife and child? As if reading my mind, my phone buzzed with a message from Matthew. "I know you need space, and I'll respect that. But missing Lily's birth has devastated me. Leaving was a terrible mistake, and I'll spend my life making it up to you both if you'll let me. I love you." I set the phone down without replying. Words came easily to Matthew. He had always been skilled with them, but actions those revealed real priorities, and his had spoken clearly. Lily's soft cries from the nursery drew me back. As I went to her, I realized for the first time in months that I wasn't worrying about Matthew, or worse, his mother, judging my parenting choices. Alongside the pain was a strange sense of freedom. Whatever decisions lay ahead, I would make them for Lily and for myself, not for Matthew, not for his parents. Just for us, the family that should have always been his priority. The days that followed found their rhythm in Lily's needs. Feed, change, rest when she slept. Repeat, live, stayed close, managing visitors and calls, stepping in when Eleanor and Richard appeared at the door. "They're here again," Live reported on New Year's Eve, peeking through the blinds. "Third time this week. Tell them the same thing as yesterday," I said, eyes on Lily as she nursed. "I'm not ready for visitors. They insist they have a right to see their granddaughter." A sharp laugh escaped me. Startling, Lily writes. "Everyone talks about their rights, but no one cared about mine when I needed them." Live softened my words into something more diplomatic and soon returned, satisfied. "They've gone for now." To his credit, Matthew respected my request for space. He sent daily texts, short updates, words of love, messages saying he missed us. I read them all, but rarely replied beyond brief notes about Lily. Part of me wanted to believe him, to forgive, to rebuild. But another, stronger part, remembered too well how easily he had walked away when we needed him most. Trust, once broken, wasn't simple to repair. On January 2nd, Jenna arrived from Seattle, bringing her usual energy and blunt honesty. After hugging me, she frowned. "You look awful. Go shower. I'll take the baby." "Nice to see you too," I muttered, but handed Lily over, gratefully. Under the hot water, exhaustion washed away, and thoughts of the future came pressing in. Could I forgive Matthew? Did I even want to? And if not, what would that mean for Lily, for our home, for everything we'd built? When I came back, Jenna sat rocking Lily, speaking on speakerphone. The voice stopped me in my tracks. "Matthew, she needs time," Jenna was saying firmly. "You made a huge mistake, and while you may be sorry, that doesn't erase it." No. Matthew's voice sounded strained. "But it's been nearly 2 weeks. I've seen Lily once, for 10 minutes. I'm missing everything." "Yes, you are," Jenna agreed evenly. "Just as Emma missed having her husband when she went into labor. Actions have consequences, Matt." I cleared my throat, and Jenna looked up without apology. "Emma's here now," she told him, handing me the phone before disappearing into the nursery with Lily. "Emma," his voice was tentative, hopeful. "I'm here," I said, sitting on the couch. "How are you? How's Lily?" "We're managing. She's gaining weight. The doctor says she's perfect. I wish I could see her. See you both." The longing in his voice was unmistakable. I closed my eyes, weighed down by the distance between us, just physical, but the emotional divide that had grown long before Lily's birth. "You can come tomorrow," I said at last. 2 o'clock. "Just you, not your parents." His relief was immediate. "Thank you. I'll be there. I promise." After hanging up, I found Jenna humming softly to Lily. "Sorry for answering," she said, though clearly unapologetic. "But someone had to start rebuilding the bridge. You're too drained to do it alone." "I invited him tomorrow," I admitted. "I don't know if it's the right choice." "Maybe there is no right choice," Jenna replied. "Only decisions and their consequences. The question is, what do you want, Emma? Not for Lily, not for Matthew, for yourself." Leaning on the doorframe, I watched her rock my daughter. "I want to stop feeling betrayed every time I look at him. I want to trust him again, but I don't know if I can." "Then, that's where you begin," Jenna said simply. "Tell him that." The next day, at exactly 2 o'clock, Matthew arrived with flowers and a small wrapped gift. He looked tidier than before, freshly shaven, clothes neat, though his eyes still carried a haunted look. "Thank you for letting me come," he said, voice heavy with emotion, as he handed me the flowers. Daisies, my favorite. Not the roses his mother would have chosen. I accepted them with a quiet nod and led him into the living room, where Lily was awake in her bassinet, her dark blue eyes growing more aware each day. Matthew approached cautiously, almost as if he feared she might vanish. Kneeling beside her, his hands shook as he reached for her tiny fist. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "She looks like you." "She has your chin," I said, noticing it clearly in her small, determined profile. For several minutes, we sat in uneasy silence, both watching Lily as she waved her arms and made the gentle cooing sounds that had become the rhythm of my days. "Can I hold her?" Matthew asked at last. I nodded, showing him how to support her head. He lifted her carefully into his arms, the expression on his face the first time he truly held his daughter. Not just the brief moment at the hospital was layered with awe, joy, and deep regret. "I'm so sorry, Emma," he said softly, eyes fixed on Lily. "I know it doesn't begin to cover everything, but I should have been here. I never should have left." "Why did you?" I asked the question that had haunted me for weeks. Why leave it all, knowing I was so close to my due date? He was silent for a while, gently rocking Lily. "I've asked myself that since I got your message about her birth," he admitted. "The easy answer is, I didn't think you'd go into labor early. But the real answer," he took a deep breath, "the real answer is that I was afraid." "Afraid?" I echoed, surprised. "Of what?" "Of failing," he said, barely audible, "of not being a good enough father. My dad always made it look simple raising me, providing for us, knowing exactly what to do. I was terrified I wouldn't measure up. So, you went to him, instead of staying with me." He nodded, his shame obvious. "It sounds foolish now. It was foolish. But being in my parents' house, hearing them tell me I'd be fine because I was their sonite, felt easier than facing the reality here. The reality that parenthood is frightening for everyone." "I thought we were supposed to figure it out together," I said quietly. "Yes," he agreed, finally meeting my eyes. "I failed you, Emma. I chose comfort over responsibility. I listened to my parents instead of my wife, and I'll regret that decision for the rest of my life." His honesty caught me off guard. I'd expected excuses or blame, not this bare admission of failure. "Your mother called yesterday," I said after a pause. "She wants to see Lily. She accused me of keeping her granddaughter from her, of being selfish." Matthew's expression hardened. "What did you say?" "Nothing," Jenna answered. "She told your mother that respect isn't a right, it's earned, and that when she respected me as Lily's mother, then we could talk about visits." A faint smile touched his lips. "Mom didn't take that well, I bet." "No, she didn't. She called again an hour later, asking for you. She said you'd been staying with them since leaving the hotel, and that you agreed I was being unfair." Matthew's gaze dropped back to Lily, tension in his shoulders. "I stayed with them for 2 nights after I couldn't get into the hospital," he admitted. "But after that, I went back to the hotel. I haven't spoken to them since New Year's Eve." "What happened on New Year's Eve?" He sighed heavily. "They started talking about lawyers, about grandparents' rights, about ensuring they had regular time with Lily no matter what happened between us. And I told them they were out of their minds if they thought I'd let them take my daughter from her mother. I told them if they pursued it, they'd lose not just you, they'd lose me too." His voice wavered. "It got ugly. Mom cried, Dad shouted. I left." The admission stunned me. For years, I had watched Matthew defer to his parents on everything from which car to buy to how we spent holidays. To hear he had stood up to them, for me, and for Lily, seemed almost impossible. "They've been trying to reach me since," he continued. "I've ignored them, just like..." He stopped, his meaning clear, just as I had once ignored him. Lily began to fuss, her face scrunching before the cry. Instinctively, I reached for her, and Matthew transferred her carefully back into my arms. "She's probably hungry," I explained, settling onto the couch to nurse her. Matthew watched quietly, then reached for the small package he'd brought. "I got this for her, for both of you." Inside was a delicate silver frame holding 2 photos side by side. On the left was one of me holding Lily on the day she was born, likely taken by Liv. On the right was an empty space, waiting. "I thought, maybe we could take a picture today," Matthew said hesitantly. "The 3 of us together, even if it's the only one we ever have." The meaning was unmistakable. He wasn't expecting forgiveness or hoping for quick reconciliation. Instead, he seemed prepared for the reality that our family might never exist as he had once imagined. While Lily nursed, I studied Matthew's face, looking past the attractive features that had first drawn me in, trying to see the person beneath. Imperfect, yes, but perhaps not entirely beyond change. One picture, I finally agreed. But, Matthew, I don't know what comes next. I don't know if I can trust you again. He nodded, accepting my hesitation. I understand. I only want a chance to prove myself, not through promises, but through actions. Whatever that means, however long it takes. After Lily finished and was settled in her bassinet, we posed for the photo. Matthew's arm rested carefully around my shoulders, Lily cradled between us. Our faces reflected caution, but also a trace of hope. At the door, before leaving, Matthew paused. I've been thinking about everything about my parents, their influence on me and on us. I'm starting therapy next week. I need to understand why I allowed them so much control, why I couldn't set boundaries. It caught me off guard. He had always dismissed therapy as paying someone to tell you what you already know. I think that's a good idea, I said cautiously. I'd like to see Lily again, if that's okay. Maybe regularly, but only as you decide. He hesitated. And when you're ready, maybe we could talk about what you need from me to rebuild trust. I didn't commit, but I didn't refuse either. I'll think about it. As I closed the door, I felt a shift within me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the willingness to consider moving forward in some form. Winter passed into spring, bringing slow but steady changes. Matthew began visiting 3 times a week. His gestures were thoughtful, never excessive, always meaningful. Books I had mentioned, my favorite takeout after sleepless nights with Lily, even a playlist of calming songs he created for her. Most importantly, he kept his word about therapy. Sometimes he shared insights from his sessions, his recognition of unhealthy patterns with his parents, and the boundaries he was learning to set. My therapist asked me when I last made a major decision without consulting them. He said, one February afternoon while rocking Lily. I couldn't answer. I've been living for their approval, not for myself. My father did the same with his parents, and I thought it was normal, but it wasn't wisdom, it was control. He looked at Lily, now 3 months old, growing more aware every day. I don't want her thinking she needs anyone's permission to live her life. Gradually, we built a new balance. Matthew rented a nearby apartment, close enough to help, but giving me the space I needed. He spent hours with Lily, often sending photos of their time together at the park or at his place. His parents remained difficult. They alternated between emotional appeals and threats of legal action. Matthew shut them down firmly, telling them that undermining me was the surest way to lose access to Lily. They don't understand why I won't just fix things with you, he admitted one March evening as we sat apart on the couch, Lily asleep nearby. They think an apology or expensive gifts would solve everything. Is that what you think? I asked. He shook his head. No, I know too much has changed. We can't go back, but I hope one day we can find a way forward, whatever that may look like. Those conversations became more open as spring went on. We carefully explored what each of us wanted, feared, and hoped for. In April, I returned to work part-time while Matthew cared for Lily. It was a practical arrangement that worked for all of us. I kept my career. Matthew deepened his bond with his daughter, and Lily thrived with both parents involved. By May, when Lily was 5 months old and showing more of her personality, stubborn like Matthew, observant like me, I realized something within me had shifted. The pain was still there, but it had faded into a scar rather than a wound. Alongside it had grown respect for the changes Matthew was making. Since that January, he had kept every promise. He never pressured me about our relationship, focusing instead on being a reliable father and supportive co-parent. He maintained firm boundaries with his parents, insisting they apologize before meeting Lily. Most significantly, he began making choices about his life, his home, career, relationships, and his own terms, without their influence. On Mother's Day, he brought flowers and breakfast, but didn't stay, giving me space to enjoy the day with Lily. That evening, after putting her to bed, I found myself staring at my phone, his number glowing on the screen. Can you come over? I asked when he picked up, after Lily's asleep. There's something I want to talk about. He showed up half an hour later, concern clear on his face. Is everything all right? Everything's fine, I assured him. leading him into the living room where 2 glasses of wine waited on the table, the first I'd touched since before pregnancy. "This feels serious," he said, taking the glass I offered. "It is." I drew in a breath, gathering my thoughts. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about what happened, and everything since." He nodded, guarded but hopeful. "I don't think I'll ever forget those days," I continued. "Being alone when Lily was born, feeling abandoned when I needed you most, that will always be part of our story." "I know," he said softly, "and I'll never stop being sorry for it." "But," I said, meeting his eyes, "I've also seen who you've become in these past months. How hard you've worked to be present for Lily. And how you've tried to grow not just as a father, but as a person." His hand shook slightly as he set his glass down. "Emma, I'm not ready to go back to what we had before." "I don't think that's possible," I interrupted gently. "But I might be ready to begin something new. Not based on who we were, but on who we are now." Cautious hope lit his eyes. "What exactly do you mean?" "It means I'd like to try dating you again," I said, a small smile breaking through the seriousness. "Getting to know this new Matthew. Seeing if our future can be stronger for everything we've been through." He stayed quiet for a long moment, emotions shifting across his face. Then, softly, "I'd like that very much." We talked late into the night, not about promises or big plans, but about small things, books we'd read, how Lily nearly rolled over that morning, a cultural project I was considering, and his decision to open his own law practice instead of returning to his father's firm. Before midnight, he left. At the door, he kissed me lightly, more a question than a demand. "Good night, Emma," he said warmly. "Thank you for giving us a chance." I watched him walk to his car, thinking about bridges, those burned, and those rebuilt. Some, once destroyed, should remain ashes, but others could be rebuilt, different yet stronger, shaped by lessons of the past. Whether ours would endure was uncertain, but for the first time since that snowy Christmas Eve, I was ready to try. The phone buzzed on the seat beside me again and again, 5 missed calls now. His name flashed on the screen as another contraction hit, sharper than the last. Outside, snow blanketed the hospital parking lot. The dashboard clock read 10:20 p.m. this time. I answered. "Emma," Matthew's voice came through, urgent and worried. "Where are you? Are you all right?" "I'm in labor," I said calmly, breathing through the contraction. "At St. Mary's." "I'm coming," he said instantly. "I'm already on the road. My parents tried to stop mine. It's dangerous in the storm, but I left. I never should have gone in the first place." "I should have, Matthew," I cut in. "Just drive safely. Your son isn't waiting this time." "Son?" I could hear the wonder in his voice, imagine the smile spreading across his face. "We're having a boy. Looks like Lily's getting the brother she wished for on her 3rd birthday," I said, managing a smile despite the pain. 2 years after that Christmas, we were still learning, still growing, still facing challenges. His parents had eventually apologized, not perfectly, but enough to rebuild cautious ties. My career flourished with the Riverside Cultural Center, and his law practice grew steadily, focused on family advocacy. Our marriage wasn't what it had been, but in many ways it was stronger, rooted in trust, respect, and daily choices to put family first. "I'm coming, Emma," Matthew promised now, his voice steady. "I won't let you down. Not again. Never again." "I know," I said, and I truly did know, not because of his words, but because he'd spent 2 years proving it, every single day. Another contraction rose. I gripped the phone. "I'm going inside now. Liv's waiting at the entrance." "I love you," he said. "Both of you. All 3 of you." "We love you too," I replied. "Hurry home to us." I ended the call, stepped out into the snow, one hand on my swollen belly. I thought about how life can turn with a single choice toward heartbreak or healing, how some bridges remain in ruins, while others can be rebuilt, stronger than before. Matthew would arrive in time. Our son would be born with his father at my side. Lily would meet her brother with wide-eyed wonder. Life would move forward with challenges and joys, losses and triumphs. And in that moment, standing at the threshold between chapters, I felt grateful for the broken road that had led us here, not back to the beginning, but somewhere new, hard-earned, and therefore infinitely more precious.